I am finally doing it. One of the most requested videos I've ever gotten. Spitfire versus Bones and versus Spitfire. Right here I've got some Spitfire Formula Four 99A. Right here I've got some Bones STF, so street terrain formula. These are rated at 104A. No, these are 103A. The SPF, the skate parks, are 104A. And then these are Spitfire Formula Four 101A. So again, 99A, 103A, 101A, so that we can try and do an accurate comparison. Now, all of these wheels are relatively similar in size, so these two are the most accurate, but I wanted to have a 99 in there because Spitfire does offer two options in their street wheels and Bones only offers one. So we may as well jump straight into the comparisons. First, let's check some slideability on this sort of sandpapery ground here. This is the same spot where last year I managed to flat spot a pair of Bones. It's the only wheels I've actually flat spotted in any of my tests, but I think it's because they were the V3s, which are very skinny. So 99s. So not surprisingly, no flat spots. Formula Four 101s. There's very little difference between those two from what I'm noticing. These may slide a tiny bit faster, but they're still fairly grippy. I mean, when they say they have a good slide, they slide, but they have enough grip to be able to ride too. STFs now, Bones. Nothing, not surprised. So these Bones are the V5 shape, which are a little bit more like a conical, and they've got a pretty wide surface area. So I'm not surprised at all that I'm not flat spotting these. I'm gonna do one more on these and then one more on the 99s, because I felt like the 99s slid easier. Yeah, these 99s are sliding nicer than these Bones. The contact area is a little bit smaller on the Spitfire, so that could be why. I'm gonna try the 101s one more time. Bones. Yeah, the Bones are the stickiest. Definitely. Still no flat spots though. Let's do the same thing on some asphalt really quickly. Yeah, the 99s feel the best for some reason. Feels like I'm sliding on a green crayon or something. Well, oddly enough, and not what I would have expected, I think the 99s actually slide the best. So they're all so similar that it's almost imperceptible. And it's totally possible that I could be making it up depending on my preference. But I liked the way these slid on the asphalt and on this sandpapery ground the best. It sort of had the smoothest feel. The other ones I had to push a little bit harder, and in order of hardness. However, I get the feeling that once you go any lower than 99, it sort of shifts and all of a sudden gets harder to slide again. So none of them flat spotted on this ground, which is not surprising. Now let's get into how they feel. So these are noticeably the hardest wheels out of the bunch. When you're on a very smooth skate park, it feels really good. It is perceptibly faster. So I like the way these feel on skate parks that aren't very rough. So there is going to be a slight difference in how these two wheels perform over rougher asphalt, and that's actually more to do with the style of the wheel than the hardness in the urethane. So these V5s perform a little bit better on rougher asphalt than these 101s, and that's simply because these 101s have a smaller contact patch. These are the classic shape, these are a conical one. So a conical in the 101 would probably perform very similar to these in 103. And I would say the most forgiving ride was, of course, the 99 on rougher asphalt. But believe it or not, these Bones actually felt the fastest on the rougher asphalt. And I think that's because they just didn't lose that much to the indentation of like all the crusties from the asphalt. They're able to ride over it a little bit smoother because they're harder and because these have a wider contact patch than the other two. But a Spitfire conical is gonna have that same kind of performance because it'll be wider as well. Okay, next, let's get into durability. And in terms of wearing down from skate use, I don't actually notice any difference between the three. But there is one weird thing that I've noticed. So these Bones wheels have a tendency to chip a lot. Now let me find my worst wheel. It's always my crooked grind wheel, and it's always from these sharp metal edges at the Thompson Skate Park. So let's take a look. So if you can see, there's little chunks everywhere that are just chewed out of these wheels. And that's my crooked grind wheel. It just gets destroyed. Let's look at the Spitfires. I think these have all been my crooked grind wheel at some point, but this is my crooked grind wheel on the Spitfires. And there is some tiny little chunks, but it's much more resistant to being flaked off and beaten up. So the Spitfires definitely win in that category. They don't seem to get chewed up or shredded as easily as the Bones. Okay, next, let's get into wheel color. This one's important. This is a big factor for a lot of people. The Bones stay much, much whiter. Like you can see that it's still very, very white. It really hasn't yellowed much over time at all. These pretty much started this color and have gotten a little bit more yellow. And the other thing I've noticed is for some reason Spitfires seem to take up the color of what you're skating. So if you're skating a red curb, they're gonna absorb a bit of the red. If you're skating a yellow curb, they're gonna get more yellow. When this skate park was covered in goose crap, they were taking on the color of green from riding all over it. It was really gross. I've actually grown accustomed to the yellow color of a Spitfire. And the other thing is they don't seem to get a lot more yellow over time. As long as you're riding them a lot, then they don't get too yellow. So in terms of that affecting performance, none whatsoever. If you're fussy about your wheel color, then maybe you're gonna want the Bones because they're close enough in performance for it to not matter. One of the things about Bones is they have kind of a weird color. Like they get a little bit mottled, whereas the Spitfires are like a very consistent color throughout. They don't have like weird striations and lines in them. And these ones tend to look like they have little dirty specks in them a lot. So I like that about these. At least even though they're yellow, they're more consistent. The urethane looks more consistent as it wears down. But that has been a lot of talking, and I think we need to break it up with a little bit of skating. I better have your guys' attention because we have more ground to cover. So, there are some other things that I like about Spitfire versus Bones. Okay, so one of them is Spitfire has really good labels and specs for all their wheels. So you can see it here, but you can also check their website. So the information on the Bones website versus the information on the Spitfire website, the Spitfire has so much more about like the size of the contact patch of your wheel, the actual width of the wheel, the height of the wheel. They have so much stuff on there. And Bones only has the width of the wheel and the height of the wheel. They don't have that contact patch. Now there is another area where I actually like Bones a little bit more over Spitfire. So Spitfire, one of the things they do is they stay the same proportions as they go up in size. So if you're getting a 50mm wheel or a 52mm wheel of the same kind, it gets wider each time. So maybe if I want like a 53mm wheel, but I don't want it to be wide, I'm not gonna be able to find that with Spitfire. I'm gonna have to go with a Bones V3 to get a nice skinny wheel that's also 53mm. So that's one of the downsides. I really wouldn't ever go bigger than 51 to 52 in Spitfires because I don't like that they get wider. Well, I thought I had a lot more ground to cover, but I think I might be forgetting something, but that might be it. Although I never really answered which ones I like better. Okay, so honestly, I like Spitfires a little bit better by a margin of like 1 out of 10. So if Bones are like an 8.5, Spitfire's a 9.5. And I'm saving the 10 for the wheel company that puts out a wheel that stays really white but has the same feel as a Spitfire because I slightly prefer the feel. And it has a lot to do with just the fact that the Bones are 103A. That's a hard wheel. It's only very nice on smooth surfaces. It's jarring on rough surfaces. And this one is just a bit more forgiving and has that more classic urethane feel. So there you have it. I like these a bit better. I think people's preferences have a lot more to do with marketing than performance because I think the performance is so similar. Now it's time for me to set up these Spitfires because I've been waiting until I finished the Bones versus Spitfire to set these up, and I can finally do it. And you know what? These are getting small. Like I said, they're 49 or 48. I'm starting to lose pop. I'm ready for a 52mm to get a little bit more pop back. And most importantly, guys, let me know what your opinions are in the comments. It's always the comments that flesh out these reviews because you guys round out my limited experience. So thanks for watching. May your next session be your best session yet.